Oh, Disbelief. 같은 감시를 해볼래?
자기 개원 드리면
잠시시에서 보다게 기록이 최고 시죠.
쓰기도 간단합니다.
웰컴, most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell them to be disconnected. Tell them
그러면 앉을 수
where's
있어.
Chinox?
그 신고 시고 영원한 사람이야.
As a youngster, His Holiness the Dalai Lama learnt the importance of a caring attitude towards the environment. The Goa University greets His Holiness the Dalai Lama with expressions from Mother Nature that he cares about deeply. The ladies' representative from the Postgraduate Students' Union, Miss Elaine, will offer a bouquet to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Professor Sylvia, will present to His Holiness a basket of fruits. Professor Savita Kerkar will briefly introduce the musical composition that will soon follow, a presentation from the Goa University Choral Ensemble.
Good morning, everyone. His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the dignitaries on the dais. Today we include 3 performances. There are 3 pieces. The first one is Solis Amabili, which include the text from the Rig Veda in Sanskrit, and the music is by Santiago Luzardi Girelli. The second piece includes the Big Ocean Cantata, the world premiere, where it includes the text from the Dalai Lama, music by Santiago Gileri. And the third piece is I Offer You Peace, which includes the text from Mahatma Gandhi. And the music is by Carl Jenkins. To tell you a little bit about the Big Ocean Cantata, this is a composition by Santiago Gileri. And this is the Big Ocean Cantata is a musical piece, especially composed for and dedicated to the 14th His Holiness Dalai Lama on the occasion of his visit to Goa University in December 2019. The cantata is the result of an interdisciplinary research and creative process that combines elements of the musical and philosophical traditions of India and Tibet with Western contemporary composition techniques. This work uses traditional Tibetan melodies, Indian ragas, philosophical thinking structures, and texts from India and Tibet, as well as sound textures and harmonies of the musical traditions of the West. Through the use of these elements, the Big Ocean Cantata creates a soundscape that represents both the rich Tibetan traditions, its aspirations and hopes, and the crucial need of dialogue and sincere seek for peace, as fervently preached by the Dalai Lama. The egogist of the Big Ocean Cantata describes different sound perspectives via the varied events and experiences related to the life of the 14th Dalai Lama, his escape from Lhasa and the walk through the Himalayas in 1959, his teachings and the struggle for peace from exile in Dharmashala. Written entirely in Tibetan and Sanskrit languages, the Big Ocean Cantata comprises of texts used by the 14th Dalai Lama and the Om Mani Padme Hum, a 6-syllable mantra of the Bodhisattvara of compassion, Avalokiteshvara. This mantra, which is recited by the Tibetan Buddhist, leads to the purification of the 6 realms of existence. The Big Ocean Cantata is a work that celebrates Tibetan wisdom and coexistence and embodies in itself the struggle for freedom through the respect dialogues of the traditions and the symbiosis of the aesthetics of the East and West. The name of the composition, Big Ocean, refers to the term Dalai, which in Mongolian language means ocean, big. It is composed for an ensemble of soprano soloists, mixed choir voices, violin, pianos, as well as classical and Tibetan percussion sets, singing bowls and Tibetan gongs. In its premiere here on December 11, 2019 at the Kala Academy, it also commemorates the 30th anniversary of the Nobel Peace Prize that was awarded to His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama in 1989. Thank you very much.
The Goya will have a photograph with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I invite the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Goa University, Professor Varun Sahni, to welcome and introduce the personality of His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Your Holiness, Sri Rajiv Mehrotra, Managing Trustee, Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Abbot Geshe Lobsang Samten of Drepung Losaling Monastery, Professor Y.B. Reddy, Registrar of Goa University, Dr. Anita Dudhane, who has been instrumental in organizing this glorious event, esteemed members of the Executive Council of Goa University, distinguished authorities of the state government, deans of faculties, deans and vice deans of schools, heads of department, principals of colleges, professors, and controller of examinations, esteemed representatives of the private sector, the professions, civil society, and academia, faculty colleagues, student friends, ladies and gentlemen, Tashi Delek and Namaste. Yesterday, the 10th of December 2019, was a very special day for Goa University. Yesterday, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Yesterday also marked the 30th anniversary of the day on which the Nobel Peace Prize was conferred upon His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. Yesterday was also, so I am told, the 60th anniversary of the day when His Holiness the Dalai Lama received the equivalent of the PhD in the Tibetan monastic tradition. So, yesterday was a hallowed day in more ways than one. Our formal relationship of cooperation and friendship with the Foundation for Universal Responsibility is intended to support us in establishing programs of advanced study in the Nalanda tradition. Specifically, we have agreed to establish the Dalai Lama Chair for Nalanda Studies at our university under our Visiting Research Professor program. The Dalai Lama Chair in Nalanda Studies will focus on the study of wisdom or sutra and method or practice, aspects of an ancient tradition under the umbrella of a modern Indian university. Apart from didactic studies of the Nalanda texts, our initial phase of cooperation will also encompass meditation and training of the mind, logic and debate, Buddhist metaphysics, conflict resolution and peace studies, and gender studies. We are looking forward to hosting distinguished scholars who would enhance our understanding and our skills in these extremely important knowledge domains. Why is the Nalanda tradition so important to us today? For 7 glorious centuries, from the 5th century of the Common Era, the Mahavihar at Nalanda was not only a repository of ancient wisdom, but also the site of a unique method of teaching learning that we desperately need in India today. The Nalanda method was about cooperative, argumentative dialogue between the teacher and the learner, based on asking and answering questions in order to stimulate critical thinking and to draw out ideas, underlying presuppositions, and inherent contradictions. If the Indian education system is to ever emerge as a fount of creativity and innovation, we must emulate, incorporate, and repatriate the Nalanda tradition in our institutions of learning. The great Nalanda masters, all of whom are depicted on this beautiful tanka that has been gifted to us by the Drepung Loseling Monastery, thanks to the abbot for that very generous gift. The great Nalanda masters were all Indian, as the list of their 17 revered names reminds us. Nagarjun, Aryadev, Buddha Palita, Bhava Viveka, Chandrakirti, Shanti Deva, Shanti Rakshit, Kamal Sheel, Asanga, Vasabandhu, Dignaga, Dharmakirti, Arya Vimukti Sena, Haribhadra, Gunaprabha, Sakyaprabha, and Atisha. When Nalanda fell in the 12th century, an entire tradition of scholarship would have been lost forever had it not been transplanted north of the Himalayas in the great Buddhist monasteries of Tibet. And now, 9 centuries later, the time is ripe for the Nalanda tradition to once again be transplanted, this time from the Tibetan monasteries to Indian universities. And it is our solemn responsibility to ensure that it is fertile soil in which the sapling of the ancient Bodhi tree is planted. His Holiness the Dalai Lama will surely be telling us about this and so much more in his teachings this morning. Last year, Your Holiness, we had signed a memorandum of understanding with Drepung Loseling Monastery in Mundgod, Karnataka, and we are delighted that the abbot is here with us this morning. One group of our students has already benefited from the practice of meditation and mind training at Drepung Loseling Monastery. In January 2020, 10 faculty members from Goa University will travel to Mundgod to participate in a workshop on ethics in education, what has been called this wonderful initiative of sea learning. So our cooperation is increasing in leaps and bounds. Your Holiness, we are delighted that the music director of Goa University Choir, Dr. Santiago Losardi, has composed a cantata in your honor, the world premiere of which has just been performed in your auspicious presence a few minutes ago. Goa University humbly presents the cantata as a small gift to you and hope very much that you have enjoyed the performance. Your Holiness, Goa University will long remember the day when we had the honor of being in your presence. We promise you that we will diligently pursue the mission of transplanting and repatriating the Nalanda tradition in our university. I thank all the members of the audience for their kind attention. Tashi Dalek, Namaste, and Dev Bore Karu.
The Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama was established with the Nobel Prize for Peace awarded to His Holiness on 10th December 1989. We are also celebrating the 30th anniversary of the award to His Holiness. Sri Rajiv Meherotra is a managing trustee of the Foundation. He will elucidate the Foundation's activities.
Your Holiness, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, Registrar, Anita Dudane, who's helped so much in bringing the partnerships of the Rippling Monastery and the Foundation with Goa University. Bob Thurman, one of the oldest students of His Holiness, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Brevity is the soul of wit, and I know that every second I take up here intrudes on the precious time of His Holiness with all of you. I really just wanted to express the Foundation's gratitude to Goa University, in particular the Vice-Chancellor, for his pioneering leadership in establishing pretty much the first Dalai Lama chair, as far as we know. And for the study of the Nalanda tradition, but as His Holiness hastened to point out to us today, that the Nalanda tradition does not embody and does not rest with Buddhist ideals and Buddhist philosophy, but is an embodiment of a larger Indian heritage. And our work at the Foundation essentially deals with the intersection of His Holiness's many secular agendas. At this time, most notably, they are looking at secular mechanisms to enable people to find happiness and to avoid suffering without the badge of any particular religious faith or ideology, to make it accessible to all people, including atheists. And so for him, the cornerstone of this has been the nurturing of karuna, or compassion, and of course, ahimsa, drawing upon India's rich civilizational heritage of the most sophisticated techniques of mind training. So that essentially is our aspiration. His Holiness has often, and now I speak as one of His Holiness's Indian students and not the formal sort of office that I'm deeply blessed and privileged to hold. And His Holiness has often referred to India as the Chela now, and at one time the Guru. And that is because people like us have pleaded with His Holiness that the roles have switched, and it is no longer the Indian Guru and the Tibetan Chela. And so I think one of the remarkable achievements, and the Vice Chancellor mentioned this, again, of our efforts at this, with this partnership, will be to flag a combination of scholarship in the traditional wisdom, but equally to bring into the simultaneous space of a university the method. And this has been a unique aspect of our heritage, as opposed to the Socratic tradition of education, largely working out of purely mental processes. And there is no greater teacher than a great student. And in that sense, His Holiness, even today, does several hours of practice every day. So it is not as if having reached the pinnacle, as it were, the epitome of the human aspiration, that his learning and his engagement ceases. And this dovetails, as he told us this morning, that, look, I mean, at the moment, the most exciting, interesting work in unearthing new realms of knowledge and experience and insight and wisdom is being done with scientists. So we must also embrace scientists as our guru. So celebrating the sort of the institution of learning that Goa University is, and the great master that His Holiness is, I can only sort of, in deep gratitude, celebration on behalf of us all, express our thank you, a mundane English word, to His Holiness and to Goa University. Thank you, ladies.
We come to the moment that each one of us has been looking forward to. Some have traveled hundreds, even thousands of miles to be in the presence of the emissary of peace and compassion, feel his aura, and be illuminated by him on the relevance of ancient Nalanda teachings in our modern times. We beseech Your Holiness to speak to us. We are listening to you.
Yes. Respected elder brothers and sisters and rest of brothers and sisters, I always use this word, brothers, sisters. I really believe 7 billion human beings on this planet are actually part of human community. Same way we born, same way we die. While we alive, most precious thing is warm-heartedness. That brings inner strength, inner peace, and also create peaceful community. So I actually try to educate people or share with people as much as possible to know the ultimate source of happiness is within ourselves, not on money or fame. So therefore, here I always also believe and also share with other people, we need a sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. Different faith, different nationality, different color, and rich and poor. It's secondary. Basically, we are same human being. Now, these days I have sort of 4 commitments. Number 1 commitment as a human being, promote basic human value on the basis of scientific finding. Now, number of scientists, they found constant anger, hatred, actually eating our immune system. And basic human nature, since we are social animal, so basic nature is more compassionate. So that's the basis of our hope. Now what is we are lacking is existing education system. I usually call modern education is introduced from West. So the Western people, Judeo-Christian countries, they are, as far as spiritual field is concerned, only pray to God. Now, that's inadequate. Now, warm-heartedness, in order to keep warm-heartedness and in order to increase warm-heartedness, we must utilize human brain, not just faith. As I mentioned earlier, now scientists, number of scientists, mentioned that. So we are not talking about next life or heaven or karma, tarva, like that, nirvana. Simply, day-to-day life, everybody want happy life. So ultimate source of happiness is within ourselves. More compassionate mind, then that person automatically, reduce anger, suspicion, frustration, these things automatically reduce. So therefore, now in education, we should include education about our mind. And now this country, not new, over 3,000 years, concept of ahimsa, concept of karuna already developed. Now I think this country, during British rule, they also introduce the modern education. Wonderful. However, they do not know. Only prayer, otherwise you see training of mind, they do not know. So now, India's existing education should combine with 1,000-year-old India's education, how to tackle our emotion. So India is the only nation who can combine education about materialistic oriented education and including science, technology, very important, very good. At the same time, ancient India's education about ahimsa, karuna, through training of mind and full knowledge tackle our destructive emotion. That's India's tradition. Now that must combine with modern education and these ancient sort of Indian knowledge. So now my third or second responsibility is the promotion of religious harmony, and third regarding Tibet, and fourth now I'm trying to revival of these ancient Indian knowledge in modern India, combine modern education, which oriented materialistic sort of thing, and then ancient Indian knowledge about mind, these should combine. And India, 1,000 years, you have the tradition of secular. Wonderful. Whether you say believer or non-believer, I believe in this religion, that religion, that's personal matter. As a human being, we need education, knowledge about our mind. Then this country, these things are not something like bring something new. No. India's own tradition. Only question is revival. So that's my sort of fourth commitment. Now here, real change in the world will only come from a change of heart. So now here, according to materialistic sort of education, knowledge, when we mentioned mind or chit, only sensorial level, not chit or mental level. So materialistic life, materialistic culture, through materialistic education, whole sort of people who come through that kind of education, is they are sort of the concept of happiness, joyfulness, only related with 5 senses of organs, seeing something nice, hearing some beautiful music, and taste, and smell, and touch, including sex. These are sensorial level, not mental, sixth mind, mental level. So anger, compassion, these are on the level of sixth mind. So we need special training, special training about mental level, how to keep peace of mind. Pray or recite something not sufficient. We must utilize human brain and through human intelligence. Through that way, we have fuller knowledge. Such emotion are very destructive. It is antidote within our own mind. So realize that and pay more attention to strengthening these positive emotion, then automatically destructive emotion reduce. So Only question of healthy mind, and through that way, healthy body. So now, in that respect, in India, over 1,000 years, you see, really paying more attention about mind. So practice of shamatha, single-pointed mind, and also the analytical meditation, vipassana, over 3,000 years in this country. So, single-pointed mind sort of bring our mental energy more channelized. And the main mind increase the ability to focus one, then your main mind focusing that more seriously, then senses of organs become more neutralized. And then the very purpose of shine or shamatha is sharpening our ability, our mind, wherever you want to concentrate. You see, the meditation is very helpful to Kasoda. Anyway, to stability. Then analytical meditation, analyze. Vipassana. Vipassana really, you see, change our sort of our mind, our belief, or our attitude. So, in Buddha Dharma, of course, you see, the Sangha philosophy also is tremendously sort of practice these things. And the Jains also, you see, very much sort of you did practice these things. So Jainism, ahimsa, wonderful. Then after that, Buddha come. And also, you see, actually all major orders tradition carry the same message of love, or message of tolerance, message of self-discipline. The differences, now theistic religion believe God, creator. Non-theistic religion, like one part of Sangha philosophy, no creator. Jainism, no creator. Buddhism, no creator, but rather self-creation. So the emphasis, how to train our mind, how to tackle our destructive emotion. So in Buddhism, after Buddha, there are many scholars, eventually some different traditions, school of thought. And then gradually Nalanda institution developed. So I usually do not use the word Mahayana and Hinayana. It creates something wrong impression. The Theravada is the foundation of Buddha Dharma. Usually we call Hinayana. Then Sanskrit tradition, Mahayana. No, the Sanskrit tradition is entirely based on Pali tradition. Without a Pali tradition, you see, we can't carry Sanskrit tradition as a Buddhist sort of practice. So, Pali tradition, very important. But Pali tradition mainly is based on Buddha's quotation. And then Nalanda tradition, you see, use analytical meditation, analyze. Buddha himself, you see, told us, "O my follower, monks, scholars, should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." So Nalanda tradition exactly follow that advice. So, many Nalanda masters analyze some Buddha's own teaching. After they analyze through reasoning, they found some contradiction. So they reject even Buddha's own word. That's Nalanda tradition, like Nagarjuna and Aryadeva, Buddha Palita, these people make distinction. This Buddha's teaching we can accept literally. This Buddha's teaching we cannot accept because investigate through reason we find contradiction. So Buddha taught that particular audience, according to their mental disposition, Buddha taught that we cannot accept that. So that's quite unique, the Nalanda master. So I usually say Pali tradition and a Sanskrit tradition, not use Hinayana and Mahayana. And also I think a Nalanda tradition, meaning Sanskrit tradition, but sometimes I feel not necessary. They use the Nalanda word. Nalanda, then people get the impression, some connection with Buddhism. So simply, Sanskrit tradition. Many ancient non-Buddhist scholars, they also wrote in Sanskrit language. So at that time, Sanskrit language considered more educated people, sort of scholarly sort of language. So like Nagarjuna and these Nalanda master, they use Sanskrit text, Sanskrit word. So it is quite clear. Pali tradition, Sanskrit tradition, not necessarily just Buddhism, but all ancient Indian sort of scholars use Nalanda, the Sanskrit language. So now, as I mentioned earlier, the difference is Pali, mainly quotation, based on quotation. Sanskrit tradition, analyze. So now today, when we discuss with scientists, according Sanskrit tradition, it's very easy to learn each other. And the number of scientists really sort of they find useful about this knowledge in Sanskrit tradition. I think mainly psychology, about mind. Sometimes I sort of use, express this way, the modern psychology, compare ancient Indian psychology. Modern psychology looks like kindergarten level. The ancient Indian sort of psychology, highly developed. So now, in order to develop peaceful mind, this knowledge which exists in Sanskrit tradition, very, very useful. Then the logical approach. As a sort of student of Sanskrit tradition, in our mind, whenever we come across something, we never say, yes, yes. We always, why? That's very important. So the risk, why? Then investigate, reason. Yes, sir. Then, you see, our intelligence no longer sort of room. Why? Then plenty of room. Investigate. So therefore, according to my own sort of little experience, meeting with modern scientists, mainly in psychology and physics, and particularly quantum physics, we are very similar. once the Raja Ramana, late Raja Ramana, he told me, quantum physics in West, something new. In this country, 2,500 years ago, already developed quantum physics. It is very true. So, it is quite useful in order to tackle emotion, or emotion, destructive emotion, very much based on appearances and some kind of grasping, or there's something absolute true. Then attachment and anger, this come. So once we realize there is differences, appearance and reality, and that strong grasping, that automatically become weak. Now some quantum physicist, quantum physics student, already you see getting that kind of experience. That's exactly Nagarjuna mentioned. And many Buddha's quotation mentioned Tsumi Jigitwana Yungorasati.
So grasping at things as if they have some absolute existence it happens because of our what is known as called inappropriate mentation.
So, here I want to share with you one of my secret. That is when I met scientists, and when they explain about quantum physics, then I really sort of listen humbly. But in my mind, I feel I know better. Actually, you see, we, in Tibetan tradition, according the instruction of Shanta Rakshita from Nalanda, we extensively, you see, study these sort of knowledge. So, the Vibhashik, not much talk. And Sotantik, also not much, but little. Then Chittamantra and Madhyamika extensively, you see, explain about differences, appearance, and reality. So we study several years and also meditate. Therefore, actually we know better like that. So therefore, these is a concept very useful. Then, psychology and quantum physics. Then, kasa, neurobiology. And particularly in tantric sort of study, explanation about our inner energy, how to control these things. So we have sort of plenty of sort of material to discuss with the modern scientists, and they also appreciate to learn from Buddhist psychology or these Buddhist philosophy, these things. So we both, our principle is why. So investigate. Therefore, now some Chinese scholars, they found Tibetan Buddhism is true Nalanda tradition, and that tradition is a very scientific religion. Some Chinese scholar, they express that. So it is true. So the Sanskrit tradition, I think really is immense help to bring ability about our mind to investigate. So therefore, now these are Indian tradition. So modern India, now I notice you see more and more people really showing interest about ancient Indian knowledge. So now this university also now really have some program and have close contact with some Tibetan scholar. So and many other places in the Chandigarh University, I met, I saw talk, and then different places, more and more Indian now really showing interest about ancient Indian knowledge. So this is not something like bring from outside. No, India's own tradition. So only question is revival and combine modern education and ancient Indian knowledge, like that. So then, when we talk about ancient Indian knowledge, I often, you see, sort of teasing my Indian friend, this physical, not Indian, Tibetan, but my mind more Indian than those modern educated Indian. They do not know these things. So this is nothing special for me, but thousands, you see, I think scholar, mainly a monk. Nowadays, nuns also become now coming, more and more scholars, and also because of bhikshuni. So, in any way, in the Karnataka state, I think at least over 1,000 monk students who really study these things, at least in order to become a scholar, at least 20 years study. And in the past, in Tibet, 20, 30 years study. The root text learned by heart. Myself also, about I think 6, 7 years old, I already start memorize these root text. Then explanation, each word, according commentary, mainly Indian master. And then, of course, later Tibetan masters. I think over 10,000 volumes wrote by Tibetan master. And then we extensively use debate, logical approach. It's very, very useful, sharpening our mind, and quite sort of, because the person who study logic, then their mind always something, because of the sharp, very useful. So some Chinese tradition, these Buddhist meditation, they consider meditation is more important. Of course, no question, meditation is important, but equally important is study. So some Japanese monastery, sometimes I suggested, your monastery should become learning center, more discussion, not just a meditation. So now more and more Buddhist countries, particularly follow our Nalanda tradition, now they begin to feel study is something important. One of my close, very respected abbot, one Japanese monk, abbot, wonderful. Since we become very close friend, so he once told me, every Japanese recite the Paramita Sutra, Shirunyimu, Heart Sutra. Then he said, without knowing the meaning. So he appreciated my explanation, very useful. So he expressed to me like that. These sort of important sort of text, just something like ritual, not study. Study is very important. Now in Tibet, I think, as I mentioned earlier, firstly Shantarakshita, and then Kamalashila. They really, you see, put emphasis, study is important. So during Kamalashila, you see, he carried debate with Chinese meditation and Kamalashila, and witnessed by Tibetan king Chusung Tse. So through debate, then Kamalashila, of course, naturally more sort of scholar, so he can reasoning. So then some of those Chinese meditationer who oppose study expel from Tibet, like that. So I think today's world, today's Buddhist world, we Tibetan, only Tibetan kept this Nalanda tradition through serious sort of study and use logical approach. So now, fortunately, in South India, our traditional major monastic institution established in the Karnataka state, quite close here. So you can exploit these Tibetan scholars' knowledge. Very good. So recently I invited Aurangabad. A number of Buddhists there. But then, you see, they are so far only sort of follow Theravada tradition. Of course, wonderful, but not much use reasoning. So there are also, I briefly mentioned about the Nalanda tradition, Sanskrit tradition, use human intelligence maximum way. That's important. Now here, and this knowledge, the original source from Buddhist text, but you should use this as an academic subject, not Buddhist subject. And sometimes not necessarily use Nalanda tradition, but simply use Sanskrit tradition. So one time, Kasadi, Chagupu Timare Kasa, Kasa Pegiri, Kasa. Such a big Amravati. You see, they already built one Buddha statue or something. And then lower part, you see, they want to become sort of study room for study. Then I expressed my appreciation. Then I told them, Pali tradition, Thailand, Burma, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos, they preserve perfectly. Wonderful. Now Sanskrit, traditionally China. Now China become communist country. With Tibet, now our freedom lost. The handful Tibetan now keep using this tradition. And Mongolia also now, recent or say the decades, a lot of damage. Over 100,000 monks killed. Very difficult. But now with new freedom, the Mongolian also making some effort. I always telling them, study is very important. Some recitation, some holy text and ritual, important, but study. Recite these things with fuller knowledge, then good. Without the knowledge or the meaning, just recite is not much important. Now in reality, I think a handful Tibetan scholars, students, now in Karnataka state, these are the main sources of the Sanskrit tradition. So you already have some connection, so you should exploit our knowledge as much as you can. Okay? This is not a question of sort of change religious faith. This is just an academic subject. So faith, individual matter. These are the academic subject, something useful for humanity. My hope, India revive ancient Indian knowledge, then through education, some fuller knowledge about importance of wholeheartedness with intelligence. Now this India eventually can offer whole world through education in order to become more peaceful, more compassionate human being through education, not through prayer. I think India can show rest of the world. So there is a real potential. Now this is beginning of 21st century. So if we start some systematic sort of program, then I think later part of 21st century, I think India can make a significant contribution for world peace through inner peace. Okay. So then, the Kasa, Raja Morotra, the Kasa Somod Min Kasa, Universal Responsibility. When I received, you see, the Nobel laureate, when the announce come, so a number of people come to see me and ask me what I feel. And I just wrote, as a monk, you see, I'm no more, no less as just a monk. So, and then I express some kind of my appreciation to recognize some of my small contribution regarding peace, like that. That I express. Then when I reach Delhi, one of my Indian friend, first question is, what are you going to use those money? That's the first question, my Indian friend, as soon as I reached Delhi. I already made up, at that time, you see, I just have plain memory about Baba Amte's place. Oh, wonderful. Handicapped people, he organized and give them self-confidence and some because of leprosy. A few hands like that, but full of confidence because the organization look after them. Not look, you see, these people, not like that, equally treated them. So I very much impressed Baba Amde. So half of that money, you see, I donated to Baba Amde's Kasa society, like that. Then half money, I set up this organization. And he, long time my friend, so he look after this money. But sometimes I criticize, don't be sleepy way. Should be more active. So now this time is you, Kasota, full cooperation with this. And he can spend some money. Very good. So like that. So that's all. Thank you. Now I'm looking forward, you see, to education, your university, with cooperation, some Tibetan scholar. I think you can certainly make significant contribution regarding promotion of ancient Indian knowledge. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness, for enlightening us, even humorously at times, on the importance of studies. We shall cherish your words in our hearts and minds and fulfill them in our attitudes and lives. An important component of today's session that His Holiness has looked forward to is the interaction with students. The students who indicated their interest are requested to please follow the instructions of the ushers.
Some questions you already? Yes, some questions. Any questions? Microphone.
Good morning. My name is Michaela Chetty from Department of Zoology.
Oh, yes. I think two microphones, one microphone keep here, one microphone keep here. Then those questions come online. Okay, yes. Microphone what they do? Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Michaela Chetty from Department of Zoology. My question is, how do you maintain optimism, positivity, and faith when there is so much negativity in the world around us and disbelief in humanity?
Karsa. I think basically, look, European people, in early part 20th century, in the European continent, First World War, Second World War, according to some scholar, about 200 million of people killed through violence. But then, after Second World War, people realize now our common interest is more important. So, the French leader, De Gaulle, and German leader, Adenauer, during wartime, arch enemy, but they realize killing each other, no use. So we should develop European Union. They started. I have full confidence if European Union not developed, then last few decades, I think some killing must take place. So because European Union started or materialized, no longer killing among those member states. So this is one indication of a human being through suffering, through education. This is human beings thinking more wider, more realistic. So therefore, I think a human being, through suffering, through difficulties, we gain more deeper experience. So now this is the continuation of 20th century. I have more optimism. Now in this respect, India, China, most two populated nation. So close relation, Sino-Indian relation, very important. Traditionally, China is a Buddhist country. 1954, 55, I visited China, and many places I visited, number of Buddhist temples there. And then, of course, the totalitarian system, the communist, like Cultural Revolution, they deliberately try to destroy, but fail. It is clear. 1,000-year-old human or the spiritual tradition, very difficult to eliminate by force. So now, after Cultural Revolution, now China, the ancient Chinese tradition, and including Buddhism, the revival, also very quickly. Now today, China, communist country, I think most, there are over 300 million Buddhists. A few years ago, Chinese Peking University, one Peking University, carried a survey how many Buddhists in China. Then in their report, they mentioned over 300 millions. And many of these Chinese Buddhists are more educated people. So now, since then, Buddhist population increasing. So now, I think almost every week, some Chinese Buddhists came to see me. And since last few years, I also arrange special sort of arrangement teaching Chinese Buddhists come from mainland China. So things are changing. Now, I think Tibetan tradition, Sanskrit tradition, Nalanda tradition, Chinese Buddhist tradition also same. Tangsen, he spent some time at Nalanda and he met one Nagarjuna's disciple, Kasa. I think Nagabodhi. Some historians say he met Nagabodhi. And at that time, Nagabodhi very old. So Tibetan tradition, Sanskrit, Nalanda tradition, Tibetan Chinese tradition also Nalanda tradition. So now China, obviously totalitarian system is something new. It not fit. Now look, Hong Kong also you see like that. So more and more Chinese now follow Buddhism. And then India, land of Buddha, as Prime Minister Modi mentioned at the UN. India is land of Buddha. So culturally, spiritually, naturally, very close. And then now economically, you see the good relation, India and China, economically also is very important. So therefore, the good relation, Sino-Indian relation, something like Hindi Chini bye-bye, isn't it? Is it that? I think serious Hindi Chini bye-bye, I think can revive like that. So then, India, I think 1 billion, isn't it? China, about 3 billion. So over 2 billion, 2.5 billion. Big population. Traditionally, very close with Buddhist teaching and Sanskrit tradition. So I look, you see, these sort of aspects, quite hopeful. The totalitarian system, I think, cannot remain long future. Change. This 1,000-year-old spiritual tradition remain another few centuries. Okay. Next question. Microphone. Yes.
Your Holiness, I've always seen you smiling and laughing. What makes you angry?
Now, as a practitioner of Bodhicitta, altruism, according Shantadeva's teaching, I realize ultimate source of unhappiness is anger. So the whole sentient being, we usually call mother sentient being. So training these things, then almost, you see, entire phenomena appears very positive. Even sometimes I critical view some of these deities, very wrathful deities. Sometimes I feel love. And according to my own sort of also teaching, some sort of initiation, abhisheka, at the beginning, gektor, expel evil forces. Now, last few years, I no longer practice that. Nothing to expel. We all are mother-centered being. So this practice, very, very helpful. Very helpful. Because targeting job tamshi jangan draw the shinitani, pardo talent the person you had a family so gawartis, shustua, shukra.
And so this verse from Shantideva's Bodhisattvacharya Avatara is a very powerful verse, which says, today in the before the sight of all the Tathagatas or the Buddhas, I call upon all everyone to the feast of Buddhahood, and in the meantime also temporary blissful and happiness. Happiness in the world itself, and therefore all the gods and demigods and the rest be happy and joyful.
So I use my brain maximum way how to bring inner peace. Anger is the most powerful destroyer of inner peace. And self-centered, selfish, that also one sort of source. So the altruism is opposition of self-centered, selfish, that it reduces. And then unique Buddhist theory, nothing exists as appears, as I already mentioned, quite similar, quantum physics. So that reduces, so absolute sort of,
so that reduces your strong grasping at things as if they have absolute existence.
So, the Jashada Timusum, number tolling John Sums, took the me to Chijilo, Temperance John Jurus, Zawashok.
And Master Nagarjuna's Mulla Madhyamaka Karika says, our attachment, anger, and confusion arises because of this
number
some kind of a mental construct. And then
Namdos Kareslavna took the me to Chijilo.
Mental construct here refers to, misapprehension or misconception of the reality.
So the practice of bodhicitta and the practice of understanding about shunyata, this is my main practice. Now over almost 60 years. So very, very helpful to weaken all these destructive emotions, including anger, like that. And of course, since childhood, my mother, very, very compassionate. So we, children of our mother, we never saw mother angry face. Always sort of compassionate. So I usually describe my mother was the first teacher of compassion for me. So like that. So now here, many ladies and also sort of as males, you should teach your children from childhood anger, hatred. These are very bad for their own health and very bad for study. So compassionate mind, loving kindness is very useful in order to carry human intelligence more normal way. Too much anger, human intelligence cannot function normally. Okay. Next question.
We are taking questions from students who have already indicated their interest. Please respect the order that students are following.
Good morning. My name is Varad Narvekar. I am from Goa Engineering College, Electronics and Telecommunication Department. Your Holiness, my question is, how would be modern India and the world be different if the Nalanda University was still standing and it was not taken down? How would have been, India would have been benefited from it?
그래서